It really does take a high level of maturity and emotional intelligence to put your ego aside and maintain the priority of the children. It's hard because you've been bruised, you've been hurt, whatever it was that caused your divorce. Even if it started off friendly, something happens and your ego gets hurt. And so you take the most precious thing you have between the two of you that you know is high value, and you start leveraging them, and you start doing things that actually harm them to hurt the other parent. That's what happens. And it's all because of ego. I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married with children.
It's been 12 years since we got this gang together.
And we're still running the rapids of living with a blended family.
And sometimes that is just not easy.
If you're looking for support and tools when it comes to divorce, step-parenting, co-parenting, and giving it your best,
you're in the right place.
We're talking about everything.
You ready to get this party started?
Always. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Everything Always. I am doing this episode solo today, and it's a pretty important episode. In fact, this is the episode I would want every divorced, separated co-parent to hear. Actually, I would even want children of divorce to hear this. It's really, really meaningful to us. And again, this comes from two parents who are step-parents, a couple who's been divorced and got married with kids. And we've also been around a lot of people that are in similar situations with blended families. And Mike and I are two people that have been through the ups and downs of blending a family, and we're still going through it, and we probably will forever have ups and downs. It's just kind of the nature of blending all of these different people from different families. You have times where things are just so awesome, and then all of a sudden, the next day, something happens, and there's chaos, and there's stress, and there's challenges, and it is really, really an up and down cycle. We learn from it every time. That's our goal, and we learn along the way things that could have been different, some things that are in our control, and some things that are not. And so today, I really want to talk about this because we get a lot of DMs or emails, or sometimes now we're even getting texts on our, that you can text us. So we're getting texts, and we're hearing that so many people are experiencing high conflict parenting. And it's funny because it's not funny. It's sad because a lot of these people feel like they're the only ones going through it. Like, I'm really struggling with this. Finally, there's somebody else who's going through this. And actually, so many of us are, especially when you're in these type situations. And, a lot of you are asking more and more on this very same topic. Can you please talk more about high conflict co-parenting? And it's like, gosh, haven't we talked about it so much? But it is kind of a thing that just, unfortunately, rears its head over and over again. Even sometimes when things get calm, it pops up again. And it's really frustrating. Even when you've got the tools to deal with it, it can feel really, really hard. And we get it, and we know how hard it is. We feel your pain. And so that's what we're talking about today. Most of you listening are listening because co-parenting isn't working for you. And at the end of the day, you love your kids so much, and you start to wonder, can I still raise happy, healthy kids when it feels near impossible to get along and co-parent with my ex? I mean, it's a big question, and it feels helpless. It feels like there's just no hope to reach that, and perhaps you may never reach that, or what you have as an ideal in your mind. So we're talking about all of those things, really, with the kids always at the top of mind. It's hard, especially if you have someone working against you when you're co-parenting, and it's really, really hard if you've experienced that, when you feel like, gosh, no matter what I do, this person is just against whatever it is that I'm doing. And the unfortunate part is that those are the things, when you have a co-parent that is working against you, it's the thing that can create a divide between the parent and the child. It's really a very big influencing factor in that relationship. If you remember a few episodes, or if you haven't heard it, a really great episode is one that I did with Susan Guthrie, and she's an attorney, and she said it in such a great way. I'm not going to say it the exact way, but the idea is that it's not the divorce itself that causes difficulty for children. It's the level of conflict between the parents. And this is just so true, because I've seen people that have handled a divorce, even though they've had a difference of opinion in the way that they parent or the way that things have ended up for both of them. Even with those differences, they've still been so respectful and friendly, and really made children the priority. And listen to another episode of ours with the authors of Our Happy Divorce. They have a whole book on how they've done this so successfully with the kids, with their son, top of mind. Like he was the priority. And what they did early on was say, we're not going to let any conflict that we have between each other get in the way of the kids, because that really it's the conflict that you have as co-parents and the way that you show it in front of the kids that is the damaging part. That's what causes the emotional distress. It's what causes conflict within themselves. It affects their self-esteem. And so often parents are blaming, because we got divorced. It's not because you got divorced. It's the way that you're handling the divorce, and it's the way that you're handling your relationship with each other. What happens is that it really does take a high level of maturity and emotional intelligence to put your ego aside and maintain the priority of the children. It's hard because you've been bruised, you've been hurt, whatever it was that caused your divorce. Even if it started off friendly, something happens and your ego gets hurt. And so you take the most precious thing you have between the two of you that is high value, and you start leveraging them, and you start doing things that actually harm them to hurt the other parent. That's what happens. And it's all because of ego. So it really does take high level of maturity and emotional intelligence, which is something we all can have. It's not something you have to be born with. It's something that you learn and you just start to do. You just do it. You don't even try, you just do. And the more you do, the more it becomes natural and less hard. The sad part is that you can have one parent using the kids as leverage. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to illustrate a story with you because I love stories, and I feel like you can learn really well from stories. So I'm going to paint a scenario here. So scenario is, mom is so angry at her ex because he didn't show up to enough of Robbie's games. She then tells him flat out that he's a jerk and he isn't making the kid a priority. She then continues to highlight this to Robbie, the child. You're just not important to your dad. His work is more important. His fun is more important. All these things to let Robbie know that he's not important to his dad. Now, after enough of this, Robbie has this narrative in his mind that because his dad couldn't go to all of his games, he doesn't care about Robbie. And basically, he's thinking that everything else has value above him. But on the other side, dad might not show up to every game, but he's there for all the other things. And he pays for the activities when mom can't. He does a lot of things, in fact, that mom isn't able to do, but he never says it to Robbie. He never says, your mom doesn't care about you and her boyfriends are more important to you, or I had to pay for this because you're not important to her. Here's my point. In high conflict co-parenting situations, parents are arguing a lot about who's doing the better job at making the kids a priority. When if they stopped arguing about it and realized that they both probably do things in different ways and show up in different ways, and they didn't create false stories to make themselves look like the more loving parent, they would actually allow their kids to have their own individual relationships with their parents without any negative influence, thus making them indeed the priority. Does that make sense? So that's a story that can be pretty typical. Insert any different thing that you're complaining about, but it's something that I hear a lot about from both sides. I'm doing more of this, and well, I feel like I'm doing all of this and she's doing nothing. And it's this blame game. They're so focused on what the other person isn't doing instead of focusing on their own relationship with their child, and also just letting the other parent do it how they do it, which might not meet a certain ideal. And one person's ideal is not going to be the same as the other person. But you have to really ask yourself, is this person absent of love? Are they harming the child? That's a whole different level. But so often what we see is that people are complaining about things and making them into something that is much, much bigger than it has to be. In a healthy co-parenting relationship, the kids are the focus, not the parents. Now, right now, people are saying, well, that's what I do. And that's why we fight, because I make them the priority and he doesn't or she doesn't. Okay, so think about that statement. Where is the focus? It's on the other parent. It's not the kids. Your ex will most likely not parent like you. You might be the one who volunteers with every activity, does every fundraiser at school, is the captain of the soccer team. All of that is super great. And I hope that if you're doing that, it brings you all of the joy. I loved volunteering in my kids' classroom. I loved being the classroom parent and organizing all of the events for the different holidays. I loved doing book club in their schools and hanging out with the other kids. But just because I did that doesn't mean that all the other moms in that classroom who weren't room mom or who weren't in there volunteering or who weren't able to go in there because they were working or doing something else, or maybe just had some social anxiety and didn't want to be in a situation like that, it doesn't mean that they weren't making their kids a priority, because some of them were working. Some of them just felt uncomfortable. Some of them, it just wasn't their thing. I like my kids. I don't want to be around a whole bunch of other kids. They showed their priority in different ways. But if you happen to be a parent that's giving a lot of your time and you enjoy that, then that is your choice and that is your business and that is freaking awesome. But really ask yourself if it's a matter of the child being a priority or if the other parent just is doing it and showing it in different ways. See, what bothers me is that kids soak up knowledge like so quickly, right? It's since the time they are little, they are just absorbing, and they start to make beliefs about themselves at a really young age. And they're guided in the ways that they think. And that comes from what they hear on a consistent basis, which is why as parents, we have the ability to feed them positivity and love and to help build their self-esteem and their confidence. But saying you're not important to your dad or your mom, but don't worry, you're important to me, that's not building their self-esteem. That's ugly brainwashing and actually making them feel worse about themselves. And furthermore, it makes them miss out on any kind of good that they can get from that parent. So understand that whole you're not important to him, but don't worry, you're important to me. You think you're saying something positive, like, don't worry, I've got you. But at the very same time, you're saying, but you're not important. Do you see how that causes brain damage? So it's just not at all doing anything good for them, and instead making them still have that question of, well, why am I not important to the other parent? Which you may have the judgment, or the other parent may have the judgment and say, well, I can just tell because I would never do that, or I would have shown up to that, or I would have been volunteering. That's how I know that I care more and I love more. That's your opinion, though. That is your opinion. You're not inside the other parent's brain. You don't understand the different ways that they show them. And most likely, you're also not in the home with them when they have that time with a child. So the point here is keep your opinions and your judgments to yourself and allow the children to receive love in all the wonderful ways that they can, whether that means showing up to every recital or just 2 of them, whether it's 50% custody or 10%. I actually know men that travel a lot for work that are divorced. Some of them are traveling salesmen, and they only get to see their kids maybe twice a month. But you know what? They do their absolute best in that time that they have. And the mother, in one situation that I can think of right now, the mother has really fostered the relationship between the father and the child and never, ever made the child feel that they were unimportant. Never. It never even came up. It was up to the child to say, hey, I wish I could see you more. But really, the whole relationship is they only see each other twice a month, and they're so close. And it's really because the 2 parents have worked together to make both of them be important for the child. There's no negative talk or judgment. And it's actually a really beautiful thing to see. And I think that would just be so amazing if we could all do that as parents and co-parents. Have you ever wanted to send an anonymous message or letter to someone? For me, the most powerful therapy has always been to write. If I feel angry, sad, super inspired, or just wanting to feel understood, I write, and often I write letters to someone when those feelings involve a particular person. When it comes to divorce, co-parenting, step-parenting, new relationships, and everything that comes along with blended families, there tends to be a lot we don't say and a lot we wish we could say. And it feels so good writing a letter as if you were going to send it to that person. It's like this huge pressure off of your chest. It's kind of cathartic. Well, we want to offer you that forum where you can have a voice, anonymously, of course. If there's something you've always wanted to say to someone, but knew that out of respect or to save drama or because you knew it wouldn't be received well, now is your chance to get it out there and have it be read, because we would like to serve as your voice. So here's what to do. Head over to everythingalways.co/forum. That's FORUM, everythingalways.co/forum, and fill out the form. We won't know who you are, as it will be sent to us totally anonymously. It just hits our inbox, but we have no idea who it's coming from. As they come in, we will be sharing these on the podcast. We'll be able to reply to you. You'll still remain anonymous unless you reply back. And we'll let you know if it will be featured. It's 100% confidential. So what do you say? Ready to get it off your chest? Okay, back to the episode. So this child never felt unimportant. It hasn't really occurred to the child, and now the child is older, preteen. It never occurred to the child that, well, since I only see you twice a month, I must not be important. It's because it's shown in different ways, and there's this quality time spent together. And it really has resulted in this healthy, loving relationship between the kids and both of the parents. And it's really fostered this sense of security. So ask yourself, when you're saying something to your kids in anger about their other parent, does it have anything to do with the kids? Is it you saying something that to your kids, but you really want to say it to your ex? Is the focus on the kids here, or is it about you and your relationship with your ex? And you might be on the other side of this too. You might be saying, I never say anything. I never say anything negative to my kids. It's my ex that's saying something. That's why I said this is an episode for all the co-parents to hear. The point is, stop making the kids the audience of your fighting. They don't need to be a part of it. The damage of unhealthy co-parenting not only affects children when they're young, but it will follow them through their teenage years, and it especially shows up big when they enter adulthood. So much so that it makes healthy relationships of their own seem impossible. And this is heartbreaking. And it's why this episode is so important for me to share, because as much as you might be at odds with your ex, and as much as you want to throw them under the bus so that you can look like the better one, I really hope that what you want more than anything is for your precious babies to be happy and have amazing, love-filled, meaningful relationships. Okay, so we talked about the why and why co-parenting becomes so hard. And simply put, to summarize it, it's that the focus is on the parents and not the kids. So the question is, are you guilty of this? Have you done this yourself? And if so, it's okay. Divorce is hard. Wounds are hard and painful. So if you have done this, then own it and then commit to doing better starting right now. Not after you throw them under the bus again because you had a bad day or whatever happened. Start right now. Will there be damage that has already been caused? Of course, especially depending how long this has been going on. Did you just get divorced and this is happening? Or maybe it's been years. You can probably see the damage it's caused already. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it better. You can always make something better. So now I want to talk about how you can avoid the drama and this conflict between the two co-parents. And it's totally possible. It's totally possible. Now, of course, it'd be awesome if both were on the same page, but sometimes that's not going to happen. So let's talk about choice when it comes to co-parenting. So again, we're talking about two people that love their kids. That's the whole thing about this episode. Is this isn't about if you're co-parenting with somebody that is abusive or there's something really bad and threatening happening. If that's happening, this is not what this episode is about. That is, you know what to do to handle that. You have to take appropriate measures for that. This is about two people that love their kids but do not get along and can't seem to ever get along. And you're in a position where you are sharing custody, and that's that. So in this case, where you're listening to this and you're like, okay, we'll never get along. It's not going to happen anytime that we have tried or promised to be kind. One person pisses off the other person and we start this whole cycle again. If you know that and the cycle has happened that many times, then you know that you've got to stop the cycle and it's toxic. And probably the very best thing to do is really to start parenting your children without having to interact with the other parent. And I know that just hearing that makes so many people go, oh my gosh, isn't that mean? Isn't that horrible? And it also makes so many people go, seriously? Can I actually do that? Because that would be amazing. If I didn't have to interact with him or her, my life would be so much better. So there's two kind of gut reactions that you have when you hear that, because it's pretty hardcore. It's pretty strong, but it's definitely, it will come with some challenges. However, you have to think of what you've been going through in terms of the cycles of arguing and the stress that's caused on your kids. Even if you're not flat out arguing in front of them, they feel it. So when conflict is too high and the risk of arguing and trauma to the kids is high, disengaging with your co-parent is going to be your friend. no, it's not what you would have wanted when you first got divorced or when you had kids. But if you're going through these cycles of high conflict, and then it's okay for a week, and then you're fighting again, that is toxic. And it is not good for anyone. It's not good for you. It's not good for the kids. And so you have to stop engaging. We've done probably several episodes when it comes to high conflict in various situations. And so we talk about boundaries and how to disengage. We've also done an episode on parallel parenting, which is really what this disengaging is. It's instead of co-parenting together, parallel parenting is when you each parent on your own, but with no input from the other parent. So there's no engaging, and you're each respecting the other's time and relationship without interfering or engaging. Now, it's going to look different for each parent or each relationship. It's also going to look different based on the kids' ages and certain things that you do have to communicate, in which case you put some very strict boundaries. But as kids get older, you will find that there is less engaging that you have to do, because you probably, especially if you have older teens, you're able to communicate with them directly on certain things. But why is this good? Why is this idea of parallel parenting and disengaging and not interacting with the other parent good? Because children will always do well when they have a good, positive bond with each parent. And as a parent, you have this incredible influence to foster that with the other parent. But with high conflict, you're putting a wedge in there, and it's huge. It's a huge wedge. It's a block. It's a blocker to that relationship. And some of you might be saying, well, that's what I was trying to tell him when I wanted him to have a good relationship with Robbie. Okay, but were you? You might say that, and then the next week you're cutting down Robbie's dad again, or talking on the phone with grandma about how bad Robbie's dad is while Robbie's in the other room and can hear exactly what you say. So you have to see how you can't be part-time kids priority and then part-time your ego is the priority and expect, I mean, you can be, but you can't do that and then expect that a healthy relationship is going to happen or healthy emotions are going to happen for Robbie. It doesn't work that way, and it's really confusing. And I've seen that before where there's this, hey, we're going to get along and we're going to be on the same page, and then somebody angers, someone else, and then that all goes out the window. And so kids have this hope of like, yay, mom and dad are getting along, they're on my team, we're all working together. And then the next week it's like, nope, can't talk to each other. So it's instead of putting them through those ups and downs, it's kind of just drawing the line and saying, okay, that's it. This clearly hasn't worked for us, isn't going to. So it's the very best thing that we can do. Let's do this parallel. Let's do this separately and trust that we both have the good intentions. The most important part of parallel parenting is to let go of trying to influence or control the other parent. So that means if Robbie's dad doesn't allow food in the bedroom at his house, but mom does, it's none of mom's business and it's not of her control. Her opinion doesn't matter because Robbie's dad gets to run the home the way he chooses, and that's up to him. And he can have those rules within his home. The whole purpose of this is to allow your children to have a relationship with each parent with no interference. So if Robbie has a problem with the rules at dad's, then that's between dad and Robbie to figure out in that household. It's not for mom to interfere. And likewise, if Robbie's dad has an issue with what Robbie's mom is doing, not his business to interfere. So just doing this alone it's prioritizing your children, and it's allowing them to have that relationship that is their business to have with their other parent. And some of you might think as you're hearing this, not interacting and disengaging and not, consulting each other about different rules, that it sounds cold. And you're thinking if you even suggest it to your co-parent, they're going to be totally offended. But you have to keep in mind why you are doing it. And remember what your goal is. Your goal is to reduce as much stress and conflict on your kids as possible. They do not need to be the audience to your drama. And if they have been a part of your chronic roller coaster or of fighting and bad mouthing, you've basically assigned them the role of taking on your problems. So you venting to them about what you're mad about what the other parent did is not helping them at all. And instead, they're now taking on these other problems that they don't need, and it's not their problem to deal with. They've got enough going on, and it's just not cool. So being able to separate yourself and stay out of the drama and not interfere with each other and learn how to parallel parent actually shows them a mature way of handling conflict. The most important goal is to take the focus off of you and off of parents in general and to focus on the kids. And we believe that this is a really good way to do it. That's the whole thing of parallel parenting. Now, here's the thing. You may still have conflict coming from your ex, even when you have decided that you will start parallel parenting. I mean, if it were so easy to say, hey, you mind your business and I'll mind mine. I won't judge your parenting and you don't judge mine. Well, you'd probably be co-parenting together instead of parallel parenting. Like if you actually had that kind of respect for each other and you weren't going to judge and all of that, then you would be co-parenting. But you don't just walk into parallel parenting on both sides and all is well. Like that would be great. But usually it's somebody who's decided to do it on their own, or they've declared, hey, just so you know, in the future, I'm going to be parenting this way and I'm not going to interfere with what you're doing. And if you're going to try to interfere with what I'm doing, I'm just going to not engage with your comments. So you can control your side by not engaging in the drama. And that means not engaging in the name calling or the parenting judgments, or if you hear parents telling you what, mom said that you, whatever, don't care about me. Whatever those things are, don't engage in it. You have your own conversation, but don't engage. What I mean by don't engage is don't then name call back. Well, she doesn't care about you. I care more because of look at all that I do. So that's what I mean by don't engage in all of that. And don't engage if, you have started your own parallel parenting. Just don't engage in any kind of drama that's thrown at you. And you may well be on your way and be practicing parallel parenting, and you're feeling pretty okay because you're not engaging in any of that stuff. And then you'll hear from your child all of the bad things that dad says about you at his house. By the way, mom, dad says this and that and blah, 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 blah. And that's when you feel like, maybe this isn't working. This is horrible because now there's still drama. And we have talked about this a lot on other episodes, how you can handle this. And I'll get into it in a bit, but mostly what I want to talk about is how about you. And if you are the one bad mouthing or causing conflict and staying engaged, it's more about how do you control your side. And I'm hoping that you see how unhealthy it is for your child now and in their future. And maybe you do see the results of that and what has been a byproduct of all of that conflict going on based on things that you have said, or maybe your ex has said, or maybe both of you in the way that you've handled things. But really try to see it from your child's perspective. What have they been told, and what conflict have they had to endure that wasn't theirs at such a young age, but became theirs, that they had to take on because they kept hearing about it. And please let that be a wake-up call before it's too late. It's never too late to do better, but it also becomes increasingly harder, and it is an uphill battle the longer you wait to make changes. And if you are on the side of minding your own business and always being someone who fosters a healthy relationship or has started to do so for yourself and and for your child and their other parent, but you're still battling a parent that just won't ease up on you, all you can always ever do is to keep trying your best. And I know that sounds like not super promising, but it is all that you can do. You can only control what you do. You can only control and foster the relationship that you have with your child. And if the child is turning against you because you've had a parent that's been doing that, you just keep trying. And you keep trying in the best way that you know how. And no matter what, you stick with your truth. And you don't play the same conflict or bad-mouthing game, and that will start to be clear. That will start, there will be a difference, as unfortunately sometimes it takes until they're adults, but there will be a clear difference. And I've heard these stories before where there are children of divorce that are now adults that are friends of mine who remember going through divorce and remember being part of that and in the middle of conflict. And some very clearly remember the one parent that really said a lot of negative things, and it did cause the child to not be close with the other parent. And it wasn't until that this person became an adult and actually became a parent themselves that they started to realize, Mom actually never said anything negative about Dad. And it starts to become clear, and it starts to be really clear about why was I so angry? Was that something to really be angry about? Or did Dad just tell me to be angry about that? And it's really interesting. It's sad in the sense that there's this relationship that got missed, that didn't get to happen at the level it could have had that not happened, had that conflict not happened between the two parents, or even just, the one parent creating that conflict. And it's sad. And that's like the big goal of this whole episode, is to I really just want people to understand how sad it is and how these kids miss out on love from parents. And no parent is perfect. So to expect that one parent should be perfect, and if they're not, then we should turn them against each other is just awful. And we learn from our parents, we learn from our relationships, and it's our business to do so. It's not somebody else's business to tell us what to think and create the beliefs and create the narrative for us. It's not fair. And you wouldn't want that to happen to you. You wouldn't want to miss out on what could be a really good relationship just because of what somebody else's opinion was. It's not fair. So I just don't think that you just don't win that way when you play the conflict or bad-mouthing game. You won't win. It might be temporary wins, but I wouldn't even think that deep down it feels like a win. So just always be honest with your efforts and know that you're not the one contributing to psychological damage of conflict. And honestly, one day, just one day, they may see it from your side, and it could be a very beautiful lesson. I just hope that even as frustrating as it may be, whichever you relate to, whether it's you feel like you are the parent that somebody else is causing conflict and driving a wedge between you and your child, or if you are the one that's going, wait, maybe I have done that and I didn't mean to, and I didn't want to because I love my children so much and I don't want them to not have a relationship with the other parent. Whichever you're relating to, is that I hope that you find that strength, that maturity, that high emotional intelligence that you do have the capability of, and you put it into action, because there will be a reward. And even if you feel like it's too late, it's not. There's always the reward for just doing better and sticking with it, and really sticking with it, not committing to that and then again a week later going, well, now I'm frustrated and that pissed me off, so now I'm going to go down that whole spiraling out of control again. No, like really commit to doing better, because the children are the priority. and the relationship that you two have as co-parents. That's not. So the focus is not on you two. Focus is on the kids. That's the main takeaway. I know it's hard stuff. Stay strong, parents. It is not easy, but it is absolutely 100% possible. Thank you so much for listening. And we like to say, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love and be bold enough to share it with someone you don't. See you next time.